Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's so lovely to see many of you for this talk. We are this afternoon continuing our conversations around contemporary performance design and scenography and the topics related to it. And for this talk, we're foregrounding gender. And so it's really my pleasure to welcome all these exquisite female scenographers and set designers with me here. First, I want to introduce the moderator of the panel, who is the excellent artistic director, Markéta Fantová. Please join me in welcoming her as well as our other speakers.
Hello, and thank you so much for being here in such a large number. That's amazing. So I, in turn, would like to introduce our speakers. We have Lucia Škandíková and Eva Jiříkovská. Both of them are based in Czech Republic, working in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Estonia, and other countries. Both of them are scenic designers, and they will both, everyone here will show you what they are working on. They're essentially just 7 minutes, short 7-minute cut of their work. On my left side, I have Sybil Wickerzheimer and Maureen Weiss. Both of them are US-based set designers, and they're also both authors of a book, US Set Designers in Conversation. And over there, we have Elahi Marjovi, who is an Iranian-Canadian designer, freelance scenographer, and a manager, arts manager based in Toronto at the moment, but she also taught at the University of Tehran, worked on Broadway, and then moved to Canada. So these are our speakers. Please give them a nice warm welcome. Thank you. And just to start, I just wanted to start the conversation that me and Michaela were just in an interview today, and it was very interesting because the interviewer asked us, are you doing anything at all for the feminist issue being risen here at PQ? Well, first of all, it was two of us being women. A big portion of the PQ is being ran by women, and I'm really happy that we have this panel. The conversation can, of course, be much longer. There could be much more done, but let's just at least start the conversation and continue on. So the reason why we have this panel is because the discussion about the fact that this industry, particularly talking about set design, has been for many, many years mostly a domain of men, and they were the ones who also created the structure of working, and that might sometimes feel a little bit like a shirt that doesn't fit really well to some women. And I think that women had been doing enormous amount of work to really open up the possibilities, opening up the imaginative ways of working. They had also done a lot for gender equality in different parts of the world, and also by supporting and elevating the work of women designers, we can help to create more inclusive and diverse industry for everybody else too. So let's just start by looking at each of our speakers' work. Eva, please, if you would.
Dobrý den, já jsem komunistické dítě a stále se necítím v angličtině dobře a mluvím velmi špatně, a proto jsem využila možnost tady překladatele Pavla Drábka a velice jsem za to ráda, že mi pomůže.
Hello, so I'm the child of communism and still don't feel very comfortable with English, so I drew on the help of my friend Pavel Drábek, that's me.
Já jsem vlastně vystudovala grafiku a výtvarnou výchovu na pedagogické fakultě a dostala jsem se do Slováckého divadla posléze.
I studied graphics and visual arts and then started working as a scenic artist in Slovácké divadlo in Uherské Hradiště in the Czech Republic.
A po asi 16 letech, kdy jsem teda i vyjížděla do různých jiných divadel v České republice, jsem se přesunula do Prahy.
And after 16 years of working in Slovácké divadlo with a number of guest appearances in other theaters, after those 16 years I moved and relocated to Prague.
Já myslím, že je mi blízké propojení reality s abstrakcí.
What I like is a connection of reality with abstraction.
Důraz na materiál.
A stress on material.
Kompaktní řešení scénografie a kostýmů.
And a compact integral solution to set design and costume.
Kdy povětšinou spolu dělám vlastně oboje sama.
And in most cases I realize both of these on my own.
A potom si velmi užívám soudržnost v tom týmu, když je nás tam víc, je tam light designer, je tam hudebník a tak dále.
And I enjoy very much and cherish when the integrity and the cohesion of a team working with light designers, graphic designers and others.
A v posledních letech používám hodně možnost dřevěné překližky jako recyklovatelného materiálu.
Recently I've been exploring the possibilities of plywood as recyclable and recycled material.
Hlavně jako důraz na přírodu a silná struktura v tom materiálu.
As a kind of stress, a very strong pronounced emphasis on nature, environment, and which is present in the material in a sustainable form.
A poté velmi ráda využívám v surové podobě vlastně hliník a ocel.
And I also very much like to use aluminium and iron in their raw forms.
A potom je důležitá pro mě také neonová stopa.
And also like exploring the neon trace or neon footfall.
A každá nová inscenace je pro mě tabula ráza. Neopakuju se, snažím se vždy být v tom přístupu nová pro sebe.
And I don't try to repeat myself if each of the productions is a blank slate and I'm starting from scratch, and for myself I'm trying to rediscover and learn and try new things.
A každý režisér mě ovlivňuje jinak.
And every director I'm working with influences me in a different way.
Představím vám pár svých inscenací z posledních let a začínám čekáním na Godota.
I would like to go through a few of my recent realizations. The first is Waiting for Godot.
Je to klasické drama vyabstrahované do bílé krajiny.
It's of course a classical piece of drama abstracted in a white environment or landscape.
Kde už byla jen slova a elektrické vedení.
Okay, with nothing left behind but words and electric wires.
Elektrické vedení napojené směrem nahoru.
An electric wiring that leads upwards.
A strom rámovaný citylightem.
And a tree that is framed by city lights.
Další z mých inscenací jsem dělala představení Neviditelný, psychologický román.
The next production is The Invisible, which is a psychological novel.
Kde zde na fotkách už vidíte jeho druhou část. Byl to pouze uzavřený pokoj nemocné postavy.
You can see the second part of the production, which is only an enclosed room of the sick person.
Otáčecí kostka, zrcadlové folie a využití divadelního prostoru.
A rotating box, mirroring foils or plastics, and the uses of theatrical space.
Další inscenací je Švejk, český ikonický humoristický román.
My next production is Švejk, The Good Soldier Švejk, which is the classical Czech satirical novel.
Přetavili jsme ho do současnosti s režisérem Majem Amslerem.
We have updated it or transformed it into the present times with the director Majem Amsler.
Do současnosti zmítané válkou na Ukrajině.
Into a present that is being torn and tossed by the war in Ukraine.
Prostřílené dřevo vlastně vytváří dramatickou linku a světelný záznam kulky, která letí ze samopalu.
The wood has been shot through by bullets, and that is the source of light of the journey, the trajectory of a submachine gun entering the space.
Další inscenací jsou Naši furianti, to je česká klasika.
The next production is Naši furianti, which could be said translated as Our Three Thinkers or Our Big Bosses. That's a classical 1880s Czech drama.
Kde jsem využila krajinu vetknutou do otevřeného prostoru.
Where I use the image of a landscape in an open space.
A posléze jsem uzavřela zdmi klasického stavení českého.
Which is finally eventually enclosed within the walls of a traditional Czech building or hut.
Kde jsem také použila klasické kroje, tak jak jsou na vesnici v Česku.
And I also used traditional Czech costumes from villages.
A režisér vlastně chtěl klást důraz na slovo a činy postav.
The director wanted to emphasize the words and actions of individual characters.
A proto je tato práce pro mě něčím jiná, protože jsem hodně participovala s představou režiséra.
Which is a very different type of work for me because I had to work and engage very profoundly with the director's concept.
Silva je adaptace vesnického románu, je to další inscenace, kterou představuju.
Silva is the next production. It's an adaptation of a rural novel set in the countryside.
Je tam vlastně silná neonová linka vytvářící pohoří hor.
You can see the prominent neon light tracing the emblem of a skyline or mountains in the background.
A dřevo uzavírá prostor světnice v horách.
And the wood is enclosing the space of a little chamber in the middle of the mountains.
Dostáváme se k inscenaci Poe v Národním divadle v Laterně Magice.
The next production is Poe, done in the Laterna Magica of the National Theatre here in Prague.
A já bych poprosila zvuk, jestli by pustili trailer k této inscenaci, protože někdy si myslím, že záznam fotografický není tak skvělý a nelze ho dobře použít.
I would like to play a short trailer for this production because photographs sometimes fail to convey the message or the impression of the show. So if we could have sound and the video.
Do andělé pokleklí ulétají a závuje se rvouce z ramenou horu tragédií člověk. Pocity jsou ta nejskvělejší věc. Budete-li se někdy věšet, topit nebo si řezat žíly, rozhodně si v tom zapisujte a sdílejte své pocity.
Tak a další poslední dvě inscenace je teďka aktuální inscenace od Opilí, je to Vyrypájevova tragická groteska.
The last two productions I'm going to talk about. So the first one is The Drunken by Veripaev. It's a contemporary satirical grotesque play.
Je to obyčejný dřevěný dům, ve kterém jsou 2 pokoje a restaurace.
A simple house with 2 rooms and a restaurant.
A vlastně prolínají se v něm všechny postavy, které zaslechly Boha ve svém srdci.
And in this house where all the characters meet who have heard God speak to them in their heart.
A poslední, kterou bych chtěla představit, je mi velmi blízká inscenace Jerma na motivy Lorkovy Jermy.
The final production I would like to present to you is Yerma, which is inspired by García Lorca's play.
Pro mě to je nejsilnější spolupráce vnímání tématu.
I'm very partial to this production. It's one of the closest collaborations for me in the relation to the topic, the theme of the play.
Kde jsem zase použila možnost překližky s pojednáním, s vetknutím vlastně té linky.
Yeah. Here again, I used plywood with the fragmented structure on it.
Což byl zásah jakože malého drobného tvora ve dřevu červotoče.
This is to kind of signify or symbol the intrusion of a little insect that eats through the wood.
Je to vlastně o ženě, která nemůže otěhotnět.
And it's a story of a woman who can't conceive, who can't get pregnant.
A červotoč je vlastně metafora jejího prázdného lůna.
And the woodworm is a metaphor for infertile womb.
Červotoč klade miliony vajíček.
And of course the wormwood lays millions of eggs.
That's all.
Thank you. Thank you both, and Pavel for translation. It was great.
Hello, I'm a little bit nervous, so I will read my presentation. Bad English, so I'm sorry if I will make some mistakes. I'm a stage designer with experience working in both prestigious theater houses like the National Theatre in Prague, as well as on authorial projects in alternative spaces. One of the fundamental questions that intrigues me is the boundary between illusion and reality. In this presentation, I will share my thoughts and perspectives on this matter, exploring various approaches and perspectives. In this production, what you can see, it's lunch at Wittgenstein. I tried to fill the entire space behind the portal completely. I fill it with a big room, a white room. I construct a white room without doors or windows, leaving the fireplace as the sole entrance for the performance. Additionally, it was important for me to build a ceiling, enclosing the space entirely and symbolizing a mental prison for the characters on stage. Now I will show you some images. Here you can see a family fireplace. This is another production. Name of production is Elites. I built the room in hyper-realistic style so that the set looked like a shot from a movie. The front of the room was covered with transparent plexiglass, allowing the audience to peer inside. During the performance, the theater staff gradually dismantled the room. We show it. Once the room was fully disassembled, a mirrored room that had been surrounding it all along was revealed, creating the illusion of an infinite space. It's like this. This is another production. It was quite a romantic style. In the romantic production of Manon Lescaut, I created a set that embodied a fairy tale aesthetic. However, I deliberately introduced subversive element to disrupt the overly kitschy atmosphere. For instance, I created a hole in the wall where the room with clouds once stood, revealing the backstage and inner working of the theater. This intentional design choice aimed acknowledge and emphasize the reality of being in a theater setting. Here you can see it. In my work, I often strive to highlight the theatrical nature of production and emphasize this aspect. One of my favorite projects in this regard is called No Show Tonight. In this production, I aim to create a captivating illusion of theatrical reality. I recreated an empty theater stage, paying attention to every detail, including walls, doors, and lights, etc. Essentially, we construct an empty stage within an empty stage, creating a sense of mystification for the audience. As the performance unfolded, the actors gradually dismantled the walls, revealing another layer of identical walls behind them, which had previously gone unnoticed. This concept aimed to play with the spectators' perception and challenge their expectations, further blurring the line between reality and theatricality. Here you can see sets of empty space. I enjoy incorporating the actual theater environment into my set designs. In the production titled For Beauty, I took a unique approach by seating the audience on the stage, allowing them to face the auditorium. I utilized the auditorium itself as a terrain for the performers, creating an immersive experience. The only scenographic element used was a suspended gold chandelier positioned among the chair in the auditorium. I fully utilized the entire theater space, including the technical background. It's like this. For instance, certain scenes took place within, it's a place where it's light designer background, lighting box. Thank you. Further blurring the boundaries between the stage and the behind the scene areas. This is one of my latest work. In the performance titled Fickle Angle, I took a more radical approach to positioning of audience. Rather than facing the action directly, the audience was seated in a circular arrangement with their backs against the performance space, essentially facing the wall. To facilitate their viewing experience, each audience member was provided with a small mirror through these mirrors, they were able to observe the performance from their individual perspective. The audience had the freedom to manipulate the mirrors, adjusting their angle and view as they pleased. This interactive element allowed the viewers to become co-creators of the performance, actively engaging with the piece and shaping their own unique interpretations. This is performance invisible too. I created an enclosed object that the audience could walk around. Initially, the object emitted long-duration sounds, creating an air of mystery about what was happening inside. As the performance progressed, small openings allowed glimpses into the object. Maybe like this. Revealing fragments of the performance dancing within. It was only toward the end of the performance that the object fully opened up, revealing the complete spectacle. Each spectator experienced a slightly different performance as they moved around, choose which opening to peer through, adding an element of individuality and unique perspectives to viewing experience. And now I will play some video. First, I will say about what is it. I enjoyed incorporating audience movement in my work. In the documentary project Disconnected, which took place in the Center of Contemporary Art Docs, I organized it as a gallery walk where the audience moved through the space to view the performance as living exhibits. One exhibit in particular would come to life and retell the story to the audience, adding an immersive and interactive element to the experience. Prosím, video.
Attention please. Welcome. The exhibition will last 1 hour. Výstava potrvá hodinu a bude bez přespachu. Please follow our directions and get us back to your seats. We will seat you from the last row. Prosím, abyste následovali naše pokyny a aby s vámi zaujali místo k sezení. Budeme vás usazovat do zadních řad. Don't worry, everybody will see. Nebojte se, všichni uvidí. Caution, pozor. Switch off your mobile. Vypněte si své mobilní telefony. Do not record. Nenahrávejte pictures. Do not dream. Do not eat. Nejsem the artist. Do not run there for the Thank you for your support.
Thank you. And Alaha Marjobi.
Hi everyone, my name is Alahe and can I have my first slide? Oh, okay. So first I want to thank Marketa and Barbara for including me here, and it's such a privilege to be here as an Iranian woman and as an Iranian designer. I was born and raised, and to share a space with all of you. I was born and raised in Iran, and I studied architecture in Iran, and that's how everything has started for me with the space. Even while studying architecture, I used to see the space as the drama and as if I was the dramaturge of the space, starting all my projects with a story for the characters who were going to live in these spaces, although different scale from theater. And that's how I got drawn to scenography, a word which is foreign in Iran, but I was lucky one of my professors introduced me to that, and I pursued my master's in the States in scenography. Coming from the architecture, of course, I'm very interested in merging architecture with theater, and I think I have an architectural vision in my designs, and I also really like metaphors and try to use the metaphors from the plays or culturally specific themes in the plays to send the message on the stage to the audience. And as I said, I'm very drawn to storytelling in my design. So this is one of my earliest works, Lobby Hero. It was actually at the university. The play is a small play. It touches upon the themes of policing and sexism and race, and it's very funny. It's a story I want to share with you. This play is about the conflicts of a black and white character. However, when they wanted to audition, they couldn't find the black actor at the university to fill the role. So they ended up using a white actor. So we really wanted to emphasize on that message through the set. So that's how the black and white theme and the chessboard came into play. And it was a game between these characters, and we played with lights and everything in order to transfer the message. The next one is Man Equals Man, and also like studying scenography is like you learn about all aspects of theater design, but my main focus is on set and costumes. So this one, I was a costume designer. This is one of the earliest works of Brecht, and it talks about the war and human identity, and at the time, we had the war in Syria, and with the director, we felt that just like there is this global message about the war, and this could happen anywhere, the play. So we decided for the costumes to pick elements from different cultures into the costumes, like military costumes of the people on the stage, actors, and even the religious characters who were on the stage. They were all carrying different elements from different religions to just have transfer that global message. All My Sons is a very classical American play. I was lucky to work with a Chinese director on this play who had a specific vision in realizing the play, and she wanted to do it in a Brechtian way, and destroying the fourth wall and bring the audience into the play. However, we were unable to do that because we had to raise a stage. We were doing it in the big space. So we incorporated a ramp on the set where the actors could move down to the audience and basically talk with them during the play. And then we decided to do projections on the set in order to bring reality of the time into the story and make it more Brechtian. This was an American dream home, just the walls, and the walls were broken as the family in the play starts to break, and there were images of the hot political things that were happening at the time in the world reflecting on the screens, such as the protests in Iran in 2009 and images of the political protests in China against the inhuman work condition. It was also a message against the wealth and accumulation of wealth and the result of the greed, which is the message of the play. Behind the screens, which were the walls of the home, there were parts of the airplane crash. And by the end of the play, basically the whole set collapsed as the family collapsed in the play. The next one is the one I did in Iran, Macbeth. They're not really good photos, I apologize, but I can tell you a bit about it. So I was so lucky to work with a group in Iran that they work based on Grotowski's method of theater. Grotowski is the Polish director who thinks that the actors who believe that actors must think with their body. So they use a lot of experimentation with their bodies, and we had a extensive rehearsal period and workshop time for this play, about 9 months, and the design kept changing based off the movements that the actors decided to do. They also incorporated improvised music into their work. So in the end, we ended up with a design that was like a iron structure, allowed them to do their movements going up and down of the set, and also it was showing the power and the ambition of Macbeth. And again, a lot of metaphor in the play. We used like really large red fabrics, pieces of fabric to show blood and stuff like that. I did costumes for that as well. Again, it's not really obvious in the images. However, in Iran, when you want to do public work, they come and see the work, like the final rehearsal, let's say, like the tech night. They come and see the representatives from the government. They would come and see the final rehearsal in order to make sure that everything is appropriate. So they came and saw it, and they gave a note that the costumes wouldn't work because it's not appropriate for women. So it was a last minute change, like 2 days before the premiere. We had, they felt like because of the movements of the actress, the pants were going up and down, and they felt like we have to change this. So I just want to share that to say that, as a designer working in Iran, you should be creative to respond to, these kind of challenges at the moment. So with very small resources. So the only thing that I came up with it was like to put bandage around the bottom of the pants to kind of hold them tight, and the bandage was kind of in line with the other fabric pieces that we were using on the stage. So to be creative in an oppressive situation is just something different. This was Montreal. So after studying in the States and living there for a while and then going back to Iran, I eventually moved to Canada in 2014. And this small play, The Dumbwaiter, is very similar to Waiting for Godot, Beckett's play. It's about two characters who are stuck in this basement waiting for a message to come down from the dumbwaiter. So I got inspired by the basements that I used to see. They're very common in Montreal's homes. They're wooden panels on the walls with tubes, all like we could see the tubes going around. And also there was repetition in these panels that would transfer the message of the tension that was in the play. A state of denial. I designed costume for this play. This was a premiere, a new play, and it shows women in the crisis situation, and it talks about the story of Armenians living in Turkey and the genocide of Armenians in Turkey. So we really, it was an intergenerational story with traveling in time and double casting for actors. So we wanted to respect the costumes as much as we could, again, with small resources and just far away from Armenia and Turkey with what we could find. She Said, He Said, another new play, a new Canadian play premiere, and this was about a conflict between a relational conflict of a black couple. It was like the performance was spoken words and dance. So we wanted a stage that works as like a playground for the actors, but also although it was about a black couple, the themes were so universal to every couple. So we wanted reflective elements, like reflective material in the set, so the audience could see themselves reflected on the stage, and playing with that image of the audience and the actors and the light and all that. And my last work, The Monument. This is also a new play. It was a premiere. This is a very touching story. It was, especially for me as an immigrant to Canada, the story is about murdered and missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada. I don't know how familiar you are with that history, but so I really wanted to respect the culture and bring as much as Indigenous culture into the set. So nature plays an important role in Indigenous culture. So we wanted to show a forest and covered the stage with mulch and that earthy vibe of the forest, and also have a circular platform in the middle, which is circle is very sacred to Indigenous cultures. We had trees that were hanging ropes with, again, fabrics in them as blood, and the red dresses that are symbols of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And the actors could play with them. And since 2018, I have been mainly focused on arts management and advocating for the artists, and I currently mainly work as I work at Toronto Arts Council, which is the funding body for the arts funding body of the City of Toronto. But yeah, thank you. That was all.
Thank you, Alana.
Hello, I'm Sybil Wickersheimer. I'm going to back up. We're at the end of my slides here, so you get a little preview. Oh, there you go. So I am a set designer based in Los Angeles, in California, in the US. And you can take a little bit of look at my work online on my website, which is sawgirl.com. I'm going to actually tell you a little bit of a different story rather than the story of the productions, which is really about my path as a designer. I've really been always attracted to peeking in through holes and materials and gaps, and when I couldn't find ways in to peek into a structure, I would find my way somehow in. So whether that's either jumping from the back of my truck over a fence or accidentally pushing open a gate, to find images that inspired me or attracted me. I often found materials that would attract me. So I started off not really understanding how to become a set designer, even though I graduated from many years of school learning how to be a set designer. And through my investigation into spaces and taking a lot of photographs, I found my way to creating installation art, and I really didn't do performance art, but I was a part of a performance art group. And that really struck me as, okay, there is an audience now, how can I play with that audience? And I found my way back to theater in this way. So here you see 2 audience members at a gallery peeking in through the fence that I accidentally opened to see that image, and I had built that image inside of that fence. So that led me then, as I started to work in theater again, I wanted to pull audiences into the spaces that I was attracted to. And I found myself doing that first with performers, oddly enough. So I would engage performers with the materials or with the crevices or with the gaps and the fences. And then I found my way to creating spaces where audience could actually witness the performers doing that. And so that really started, and actually through finding spaces that I could allow the audience to peek into a performance and then to explode those spaces, I discovered that my work as a solitary artist was actually much, much better as a collaborator and an artist working with others. So that tells you a little bit about how I found my way to design. This is a Julius Caesar at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. You can see in this image, one of the performers is digging and finding a space, and through this production of, we exposed underneath the stage, which you couldn't really see for most of the production, and then you were seeing the discarded wine bottles underneath the stage, just under the platforming. You know, my physical approach to work and working really ended up paralleling my conceptual approach. And I've leaned into that over the years and found a way to kind of do both, right? To create installations as scenery. This is a production of Blacks at Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago, Illinois. So what I hope to convey in this talk is really that my leaning into my instincts was the place that I made myself the most comfortable as a collaborator, and I could do both, be a collaborator and be a solitary artist, so that my work always kind of looks like me, even if it's always different, because of my approach. This is a production of Eliot, A Soldier's Fugue, at the Kirk Douglas Theater in Los Angeles, written by Chiara Hudes. So one of the things that I am enjoying right now our work hopefully is always changing, and the place that I'm in right now is I'm really enjoying exposing spaces through materials and through using the space of the theater, but allowing these intimate moments to be able to be possible. So when there might be a very large, scenic gesture, I can still focus in on an intimate moment, and we can feel the importance to that character and within that story. I use models to storyboard pretty strategically. This is Richard II, again at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and Richard's cape, which he wears around the space, ends up getting pulled off of him, and that's what that shiny material is. It was giant. It covered a whole bank of audience seats. As he walks away from his country, it gets pulled off of him and just gets packed up into a garbage bag. Here's the cape getting pulled off. Meanwhile, his wife is in a small space in a bathroom at their house. This is a recent production of Metamorphosis that was done in Seattle. So I'm enjoying at the moment making a big gesture and pulling it down so we understand that character. This is a new musical, The Lonely Few, at the Geffen Playhouse in Los Angeles. And Midsummer Night's Dream. So my path right now is, to continue working definitely as a set designer, but to also embrace some research that I've been doing with students. I also teach at USC, and I've been working for the last several years with students to create small spaces, and they're art students as well as scenic theater design students that are reparative spaces. So spaces that I was collaborating with specifically for my friend who runs a women's clinic that provides free therapy to women who have experienced trauma. So when they come in for their treatment, they have a space to reflect and before they go into therapy, and then also to reflect on the way out before they go back into the world. So these were very exciting little spaces and provided a lot of interactivity and textural gestures so that you could take yourself out of your mind and lean into touching and feeling. And currently I am using that as a way into considering both how to take care of the audience while also taking care of production needs, taking care of myself, my family. I have 2 children. I think this is something that we're all hoping that the model of theater might be changing, and I think that the more women who participate in the theater and bring their families. Those of you who have worked with me in the room know my kids very, very well. I think it's really the way that I hope to maintain my career in this world. So, thank you.
Hello. It's also at the end. Do I take it all the way back? You're going to get to see. Do I take it back? Hello. This is the perfect beginning for my work, by the way. I'm Maureen Weiss. I am from New York right now, but by way of Los Angeles, where I did most of my work. So I'm lately calling myself a scenic investigator because I find that mostly what propels me forward is curiosity. And today I'm spending time on my curiosity about mess. And really, I didn't know how to present myself, right? I'm gonna show you all parts of myself right now, and like, what do I show you? And I'm leaning into the really uncomfortable parts of my work, which is the mess, right? Nothing's ever completely done the way I want it done. And it has to be messy because if you look at this, I do projection, I do lighting, I do costumes. So we're gonna go through all of it. And I sort of put up there, you can't really read it, but I started out in college, I worked at a clothing store. And I noticed at the clothing store that if something was messy, people were attracted to it. They wanted to touch it. So I've sort of used that idea throughout my work. I started out as an artistic director in a warehouse space. And I curated art there, and I did plays, and I just started designing them at the same time. But it was a warehouse space, and there was dirt and oil on the floor, and I made like the very rookie mistake of like trying to paint over the oil and the dirt. Well, for the next 3 years, I was working in oil and dirt. It never went away, so I just had to learn how to embrace that dirt. After the warehouse space, I was given a mobile theater truck. And that meant I could like take shows all over town. And I'd set them up and they'd look really pretty. And then they'd get there, and this one in particular, I knew it was gonna get wrecked, but they were always in disarray once they made it to the location. So I just was like, let's go with leaving things not straight. This is an opera inside the truck. Eventually, people started to see what I did. And they were like, would you like to come in our theater and do some real design? And I didn't know that that was a career at all. So I was like, what? You're gonna pay me? I'll try. So I went through like old work, like stuff I don't show, but these are some early attempts at it, right? So I was like given this beautiful space, and I was like, I just wrecked it. But it took so much time to wreck it that I was like, don't ever move yourself into a space and try to go against the space, right? So this took so much work to try to make it look a mess, and I should have just let it be what it wanted to be. This was this huge 30 by 40 foot backdrop that I did on a stage for Titus, and I painted it, and maybe someone that worked with me, Xing, might be in the audience. We painted the full beautiful mural and the faces and everything, and I knew I had to scratch out the faces. And I started crying, and I actually had to move away, and I asked Xing, who might be in the audience, please, you've got to paint the faces out, right? You've got to mess this up. And then this one, it's just all a mess. Those walls fell down. I'd never show that piece. Then I started work with ensemble devised work, which is really fun, but what it means for a designer is that you're sort of like reading the material that they're working on, you're looking at it, and you're trying to come up with materials that will inspire them. So you just sort of drop off materials and see what performers are gonna do with it. So this is some of that work from Ghost Road Ensemble in Los Angeles. You see there's like, and naturally the performers want to start tearing it up, right? I could give them anything and they were gonna start transforming it. I'm using this piece, it was with them, but I like that there's this like water bottle, I don't know, this is the only photo I've got of it, and it has this like piece of trash, totally anachronistic. And then I was like, why am I including this piece? And then I realized like, this is Shahid with Anna Kaja, a beautiful actress, but I did it when my daughter was 3 months old. It's the cleanest of my work because I just had to, I didn't realize like sometimes cleaner's easier. I understood lines, here's some lines, it bends, put the light through it. So I think that's why I included it. So recently I've been working in dance, and I absolutely love dance. But it requires a different kind of mess, and the bodies really bring the mess. This work is by Dee Chase Angel, who was a juror here. She's fabulous, but she really likes clean, so it's been difficult. And only white, by the way, only wants white. But we got some color. So there was a plastic backdrop that was supposed to drop, and when it dropped, it got caught up there. And I mean, it's just so gorgeous caught, but that's not correct. It did drop eventually, it was beautiful. And again, you can see I do the costumes and the for this one, and these costumes were quite messy, and the bodies. Again, the costumes, this one was a really nice collaboration with an artist, an Iranian artist who designed the actual print. So beautiful. Again, it's in the people. So also, I investigate materials, and for this piece, it was for Tartuffe, and I really wanted to investigate. I guess I'm trying to let you know, you can use this career to look into things you're curious about. So I was curious about Heidi Bucher, who was a Swiss artist, and she used to do these things called skinnings, and she would skin buildings with latex. She'd peel the latex away, and then that would be the piece. So for Tartuffe, I wanted to use this technique. I could not figure out how to do the technique, and so we tried all of these experiments of different materials mixed together, and we couldn't quite get it right. And eventually, I was able to call her son, who told me that the actual materials she used are now so toxic, they're not even available. So that was an art exhibit I did. And then I do projections also, and I really want you to see these because I do everything wrong with them. So this one was like an accident where I was like, let's just try it all over the place, blow it up. And it actually ended up being really nice. So sometimes not knowing opens things up. This one, of course, you can see the projection is on the body. This one, I've got a stagehand in the middle of this picture. And then this is recent costumes I did where I just like threw everything at them. For Merry Wives, so it was like every piece of fabric you could ever find, I attached it together. And then this is outdoor work, which I find equally interesting because, like, what can you do with nature? It's so beautiful. Like, why do they need my voice in it? So instead, I was like, let's just go as artificial as possible. Let's just, like, disrupt this world. And that's it. So I guess I'll just read it. It's uncomfortable to look at your own work. You want it to feel polished, like the most perfect picture of aesthetic balance. You want it to compete with what others say is good, but it is all a performance. I am composing myself, but it's not the truth. What is it to be presentation worthy? I want to embrace all of the stuff that doesn't quite fit, because to be honest, I never felt like scenography wanted me to succeed. Stepping into the role as a woman was my first mistake. So why not just go into spaces and mess them up? So that actually led me to write a book with my colleague Sybil. And really, it starts from this place of, I don't fit, right? Like thinking you don't fit. But I was like, but wait, Sybil and I have so many conversations with each other saying how we don't fit. Like, let's open this conversation. And maybe there's like tons of us that don't fit. And so we wrote a book.
So when Maureen brought this idea up together, we started to look at what books we had in the US. And really, there were two, American Set Design 1 and 2. There they are. One was written in 1985, the other in 1993. I think that's what that says. You know, and they're great. We grew up with them in college, and you know, we've read them over. And so we thought, well, okay, American Set Design 3, you know, great. So, but we really didn't know, we didn't want to present ourselves as experts. So we invited, at first, 13 designers to join in conversation, and we created this outline with questions that we wanted to ask them. And that opened the door up to about 30. And we kind of felt like there could easily be 30 more, but we had to stop somewhere.
And Sybil's not really mentioning that American Set Design 1 and American Set Design 2, they didn't have a lot of representation. They had a few women, maybe one in the first book, which is what I had all during college. Sybil was like, they have two because Robin Wagner. We later realized that it was not a woman. Right. And so we just wanted to open up, and as professors, I'm always looking at people and whose work we should look at. So we just sort of rounded out and found these amazing voices to include. There's the cover.
There's the cover. It's for sale at the bookshop here at PQ, also for sale online, so you might want to take a look at it. But so what we started with was a survey to our designers, and trying to figure out if our questions were interesting to the group. And that really opened us up to then curate small conversations. And because we were starting, we wrote the proposal and was approved to do the book by Routledge before the pandemic started, but then somehow magically everybody was stuck at home. So the minute when we started the conversations, we all had time. So we had a really good turnout.
So from the survey, we then sort of curated conversations between various designers, and we would hand out questions, which is what you have right here, for each. We called them roundtable, and we would meet on Zoom. So it wasn't all the designers for every conversation. So like this one was create the space in order to create the work, and this had Marcia Ginsburg, Mimi Lien, and Colette Pollard in it, and then those were the questions. And we didn't always get to them, to all the questions.
We certainly didn't answer the questions.
I mean, we didn't list them through, and the conversations always had a way of sort of getting to what we really wanted to talk about, which sometimes is just like, how do you live? How are you living? And Yuri Okahana, who might also be in the audience, started with this idea, which is really interesting, like at what point in your career are you, was sort of the ask. And Yuri said, I started choosing the show instead of letting the project choose me. And then, again, another designer is Xing Yin Kaur. And they have sort of worked outside and around set design. And this is a quote by Xing.
So what was exciting, and we won't read each one. In fact, we can't see them from here. But what was very exciting is that you're hearing individual voices come through paired with lots of imagery. So there's over 100 images together in the book. And we learned a lot ourselves. We are not experts, even though we all work in this field. I don't think we could ever be an expert in it. Mm-hmm. But we are very excited about the conversation. So with that, we want to share with you this one, the last quote, and the way that the book ends. Abigail DeVille, who very well phrased, she was talking about Faith Ringgold. I don't know if you know the American artist, who said, it was always surprising to me that it was never the fact that I was black that was the issue, but more that it was a woman, that I was a woman. So, I think we still come back to barriers that we all feel because we are women, but we have been able to obviously have very successful careers. It is a path. So.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So in the beginning, we talked about a conversation, and hopefully a conversation that will continue outside of this room. As you can see, it is already happening in the book. There are many questions that I would like to ask, and I hope that you will continue asking other women, not only within America, but explore now the possibilities outside of those borders. But you mentioned at the end of your conversation that all of us women, every once in a while, or particularly at the beginning of our careers, we felt that there are some obstacles, there are some ways, some constraints, some problems, some issues, some difficulties. And I would like to ask a question, just each one of you, if you can think of one of these, that you consider something that you felt you are fighting to unblock or open up for others, something that you're trying to change or that became something you remember. So I'd be really curious to hear that. And I'd like to start with Alahe, because I think where you come from, I believe that the restrictions are perhaps the most difficult.
So I can talk about two words. First, I will start with Iran. So in Iran, generally, when you are brought up as a girl, you are taught to think as yourself as lower in compared to men, because of all the dominant religious culture and also the society. So you are raised to believe that you value less than men, and it's very annoying, and to know that you need to work harder to prove yourself. However, like Iranian women have shown that they're really intelligent and they're really courageous, and majority of the students at this universities in Iran are women, more than 60%. And as you might know, recently we have a huge political movement that is led and initiated by women in Iran, Women Life Freedom. So it shows the courage of Iranian women. So from that small world, you come to theater, where is a male-dominant field even outside of Iran, and you have to work with directors and producers who are mainly male. And you cannot work independently really as a woman designer in Iran without being attached to a male. And that's, if I want to explain it, you start working with a male director, and if you are lucky and you click, that's how you will move forward. You will continue working with that person. And if the click doesn't happen for you, the work will not happen for you. So at the moment, I cannot name any active women set designer in Iran who is like working, really. All of them are men. And women are pushed to assist men or to work in the costumes, which is considered as a feminine word. So there's always this conflict between male directors, women designers, or male technicians, always male in Iran, and women designers. So it's really difficult to overcome that and to be able to work. And then from that word, I came to Canada, and as a woman of color. So that's a double challenge. As an immigrant woman, again, I was expected to work harder to access some things because the Canadian theater institutions or North Americans, they're established on white supremacy to uphold white artists, especially white male artists. And the field is a bit more balanced in the recent years, but I will say it's unjust system. We are not able, especially as newcomers, you are not able to make meaningful long-term relationships with organizations. And as you all saw, I was always hired by organizations who are focused on culturally specific works and by people of color. I have never been asked by a white theater organization to work with them. And it's sad that compared to Iran, here you have a lot more resources, financial resources, while in Iran it's absolutely nothing, no money for theater, and it's a very competitive field. The motto is like kill or be killed. So whenever a designer got a work, they stick to it because they don't know when the next opportunity would come to you. So what I'm seeing now, for instance, in Toronto, which is a big city in Canada, the biggest city, is that you see only few designers doing all the work. And again, mainly white male designers. That's really what pushed me aside a bit and encouraged me to go into the arts management, because from the beginning I understood that I cannot only be an artist in Canada, I have to be also an activist and advocate, and that's expected for me, and I'm carrying my identity everywhere. So that's what I've been trying to do, to just advocating for equity for BIPOC artists and BIPOC female artists mainly, yeah.
Thank you. So, and so I would like to turn to Eva with a similar question, or the same question rather, if there were any, I'll say it in Czech, that'll be easier. It's essentially the same question, I'll just repeat it. Jestli byly nějaké zádrhele v té vaší práci jako vlastně žena, jestli jste cítila se někdy hodně vlastně utaženě.
Protože jsem člověk hodně se stresující, tak kdykoliv představuju jakoukoliv moji scénografii, tak mám obavy a většinou jsou kolem všude muži.
Because I'm a stresser and a woman, I'm always stressing when presenting my designs, and whenever I'm presenting them, all the teams around me are all male.
Ale povětšinou ty obavy přejdou, protože se snažíme navzájem k sobě přistupovat s úctou a nemáme tady u nás v České republice, aspoň za mě, takovýto problém, jako má kolegyně.
But very soon the stress and the barrier goes, because we tend to treat one another with respect. And as far as I am concerned, my experience goes, says Eva, I haven't experienced any such kind of obstacle or issue as Eli has mentioned in her own story.
Možná bych jako vypíchla i problém jeden, který se týká vlastně odměn za tuto práci.
But there is one thing that I would like to pick on, and that is equal pay.
A jsem... Myslím si, že pánové dostávají mnohem víc peněz než scenografky ženy.
I think that male scenographers are paid way more than female scenographers.
A u nás vůbec v České republice jsou stále platy mužů mnohem vyšší než žen.
And the male pay in the Czech Republic is way higher than female pay.
Každopádně dělám tu práci s láskou a je to můj koníček.
However, I do my work with love, and it's also my hobby.
And let's stay still in Czech Republic and see if Lucia has a different experience or the same one.
Ja som vo svojej praxi zas tak na veľké problémy nenarazila.
So in my practice, in my experience, my career, I haven't come across any great obstacles.
Vlastne také posledné známky nejakého nerešpektu k ženám v scenografii som zaznamenala ešte na škole.
Probably the most recent cases of disrespect towards women was while I was still a student at the academy.
A tam si vyložene pamätám, že nám bolo hovorené, že nemá zmysel sa toľko nám venovať nejak veľký časový priestor, pretože aj tak budeme mať deti a nebudeme môcť tú prácu robiť.
When we were told that there is no point in dedicating much time to you girls because you will have kids and won't have time to do the work anyway.
Pritom to bolo absurdné, pretože vlastne valná väčšina prijatých študentov boli ženy a väčšinou sa tam objavil jeden kluk v ročníku.
And of course that was ridiculous because a majority of all the accepted students were women, and generally there was one male per year.
No. A v podstate mu venovali oveľa viac času než nám a bolo to docela citeľné. To som pociťovala.
However, that one male got a way more attention and care from the pedagogue, and that was felt.
Ale vo svojej praxi, potom už keď po škole som začala normálne pracovať, tak v podstate vôbec to nebola ako realita, že by žena mala byť nejak menej použiteľná ako muž. Nestretla som sa s tým.
However, when I started my professional career, I haven't experienced any such obstacle or any such prejudice that a woman would be able to do less work than male. So I haven't encountered it in my professional life.
Som tiež vlastne hodne obklopená mužmi, ale ja mám túto spoločnosť rada a myslím, že som rešpektovaná od nich a ja ich tiež rešpektujem. Takže.
Many of my kind of colleagues are men. However, we have mutual respect and I like their company and it is a respectful collaboration.
Myslím si, že vlastne nie je rozdiel medzi ženskou a mužskou scénografkou. Nevidím v tom jediný point, o čom by som vlastne mala premýšľať, že je to iné.
So in essence, I can't see any difference between male scenography and female scenography. So I don't believe that there is any point trying to find out any essential difference.
Vlastne jediná vec, ktorú žena scenografka musí vyriešiť, že naozaj tí pedagógovia mali vlastne nie že pravdu, ale je trošku zložitý bod materstvo.
However, there is one thing that female scenographers do need to take into account, and this is not to say that the pedagogues were right, but there is a point that what female scenographers need to address is the question of maternity.
Ale vlastne ako ja som matkou syna a bola som docela dlhú dobu aj matkou samoživiteľkou.
I am a mother, I have a son, and I was an independent mother, so lone mother for a long time.
A v podstate si ale neviem predstaviť ideálnejšiu prácu, ktorú by som mohla zlúčiť s materstvom.
And I have to say that I can't imagine a better type of profession, more conducive or helpful to being a sonographer as a mother.
Takže vlastne neviem, kde je ten problém.
So effectively, I can't see any problem.
So let's go to US now. Maureen, would you like to react to some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that like the first instinct is that people assume you don't want to work after you have the kid. So I just remember like friends of mine or people I'd worked with for a long time, they were like, well, you don't want to design this set. And I'd like the chance to turn it down. But I did lose a lot of work in the first 3 years. And that is just, I handed it out to assistants. And so there's a career drop that you sort of have to come back up against. And I think I want to also point out, I always feel like I have to turn in more work. Like I'm always trying to explain myself. I have so much paperwork. I'm always trying to get it in. I'm like on the deadline. And I don't know if that's just, but in my conversations with male designers, they're not turning things in the same way that I feel like I'm turning them in. So.
I think I would say that when we started our conversations with other designers, we felt maybe that the question that we had the most was, is there a are you designing in a different way, or is there something about, a feminine perspective that might be different than a male perspective as a set designer? And I agree. I don't think that there is one. I think we're just each unique people, and we need to lean into that. So we did find that to be very exciting. Mm-hmm. Not that there aren't challenges, there are. And in a world that's becoming more gender fluid, I hope that, the individuality of the set designer will actually rise out of that overall.
Thank you. I had one more question, but we're almost out of time, and I would much rather give the floor to you for your questions. So I'd like to ask if there are any questions coming from you. So yeah, there are.
Good afternoon. My name is Ella. I'm a design student from Melbourne. And I just had a question for Ella about when you worked on the monuments and how you navigated working on such like a sensitive topic and whether you underwent any collaboration with like First Nations people or how you grappled with that in your process.
I think that work was done in a correct way, which was like the director was indigenous. So I was lucky in that way that I was exposed to cultural, the cultural appropriation of the work, which is always a big concern for me, was respected. And I stepped into that work without even knowing that history, and I learned a lot, but it was a lot of checking in with the director, and she really educated me. And the other designer, the costume designer, was also indigenous. So it was a very collaborative work, a lot of learning for me and a lot of sharing from them. And of course, as you said, very sensitive. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? In the back, all the way in the back.
That's not particularly related to the creative process, but how do you step into those conversations, and what might you advise?
I'll take that. So here's the thing we found after the many conversations we had, is that we finally admitted how much we all make. And I think people admitting how much money they're making at the table up front is really important. Because we found out that, Tony Award-winning designers that we were in conversation with had never made a living at the job, right? So let's not be afraid of saying we're not earning enough and how much you're getting paid, because there's so often that we lie about it or we just hide the fact that all of our salaries are going to our assistants. So I think the more that we actually we put the number out there. And I think that will embarrass people and maybe get more money towards it. But the more we hide it, it's not good. So always ask. It's the first thing you ask, by the way. And never underbid anybody. I remember telling my student, when you graduate, you cannot ask for less than 800, because once you do that, you're lowering everybody else's pay. So you've got to come out with a certain amount. You should tell me about Danielle's charts. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah.
One of the designers that we met with, Danielle Whirl, she mentioned that she would always put together a spreadsheet and give it to the producers. So if you just break down your time per week and any assistance that you have and just show the labor and the math at a normal salary rate, that it's so much more than they're offering you, that at least there's a way to say, here's the work and here's what you're offering. Let's talk.
Do you want to say anything about that? How to help it out, or from the Czech side? Because I think there's a cultural difference also. It's maybe easier to put out the number in the United States, but it's not the same here, and definitely would not be the same in Iran. So I'm just curious, what's the situation in each location?
Možno ja by som len chcela povedať ešte k tým peniazom, jak sa tu o tom mluvilo, že vlastne ženy majú nižšie honoráre, tak
I would like to add something on the point of pay, how much money female sonographers make.
Tak ja v poslednej dobe mám napríklad dohodu s kostýmnym výtvarníkom alebo s kostýmnou výtvarničkou, že dostane stejné peniaze ako ja za scenografiu.
So recently I've always made an agreement, make it a point, make an agreement with a costume sonographer, no matter whether male or female, that we would be getting paid equally.
Pretože myslím si, že napríklad je zaujímavé, že za scenografiu sa dostáva výrazne väčší honorár, za kostýmy nižší.
Because it's interesting that set design or set scenography is generally paid way better than a costume scenography.
A myslím si, že je to fakt zapričinené tým, že je fakt, že vlastne pretrváva tá konvencia, že vlastne kostýmny dizajn robia ženy.
Yeah, and I think it's come down to the legacy and of course the wrong assumption that costume design is less valuable because traditionally it has been done by women.
Myslím si, že je to fakt vyloženie tento stereotyp.
And I think that's the stereotype that we are dealing with. So that was why.
A pritom vlastne nie je to menej práce než scenografia.
And of course it's never less work than being a set scenographer. So.
And we are almost out of time. We have only 2 minutes, but I would still like to give a chance to Elaha to respond to this.
I mean, getting paid for doing theater in Iran, what a luxury. So I honestly have nothing to add to it, because I think it's considered as honestly a free labor. We are just lucky to have the stage and be able to design, because that's the resources are so low that the first thing that would have been get cut is the design. So if they end up hiring a designer, you're just lucky to have a stage to show your work, and that's it. So no negotiations, definitely.
Thank you so much, and I hope the conversation can continue in some other format, and hopefully we'll keep going forward. Thank you so much.